In this session, we're going to take a look at bid metrics, importing an estimate from Excel, and getting into a lot more detail than the prior session. So in the previous session, we basically imported an Excel spreadsheet that really just had things like the alternate, bid metrics, phase, and item. In this example, we're going to take a look at you can actually import an Excel spreadsheet with multiple WBS codes, multiple categories. So for those estimates that you want to do more grouping and totaling and things like that on the project, that's plausible. That's what we're going to look at in this session. So just kind of a quick reminder of some of the terms. I'm going to go ahead and open up a project here. Alternates are pretty much what we're calling the very first level. So in this case, base bid, alternate 1, alternate 2, that type of thing. Within an alternate, we've got our bid metrics. So this is really how we're grouping what items or what bids might come in together. So that way they're all kind of associated with on the same tab anyway. Within there, you have each one of the different phases of scope that you're checking on for that bid metrics. And if I open that up, you see the same ones. And then if we take a look at one level deeper, for those that are estimating in detail of items and so forth, you can get an item list of what the detail was that made up that particular phase. With that being said, I'm going to go and find my Excel spreadsheet here that I want to open. And let's slide this over. So in the previous session, we talked about this is what we use for our bid metrics. This is what we use for our phases of work within the bid metrics. These were the items that were associated with the phase. And then we just brought in a total amount. So that's basically, and I think we might have brought over the quantities and just the total amount. So in the last one we did, we didn't really have any category totals. We didn't really have any type of, details or buildings or unit format. So, in this case here, when this job was estimated, I had a building A versus a building B. Within a building, I took off multiple sections for like footings and slabs and exterior walls and things like that. So that's more of a detail reference. Unit format is another numbering scheme, just like master format is. So you've got substructure, super substructure, cell things, services, those type of things. So that's basically what these two associate with is unit format. And then if you think about like master format, all my divisions here, like 31 for earthwork. But if I think back to the older 95 CSI list, that would actually be associated with division 2 for site work and so forth. So this is maybe I've got a job that I want to basically be able to see it by the 48 divisions or the 16 divisions and so forth. So like I said, just more information. You can have an indefinite number of columns to bring in. Now, with that being said, if I'm going to be using additional columns, when we went through the first import, we used up most of the sections as far as what goes to an alternate, what goes to bid metrics and things like that. And I am going to add one more column here that I forgot about for I'm just going to say the alternate, and everything I'm going to do right now is just going to be associated with base bid, I'm just going to say. So for me to be able to bring this in to bid metrics, it needs to know about these particular headings that may not be already set up. So in my standard environment, it knows about the bid metrics and alternates and phases and items, since those are all the default ones. Anything beyond that, I'm going to have to set up. So that's where I'm going to head first. So I'm going to close down this Excel spreadsheet. I'm going to go back to my projects. I'm going to start me a new project. We're going to say import Excel. Owner, I don't necessarily care about. The project size, I don't care about at the moment. I'm going to throw anything in for a bid date so I can get to creating it. In the last session, and then let's go ahead and open that project up. In the last session, we just went right to import estimate. In this session, I've got to do a little bit of work first because the system doesn't know about that unit format 1 and 2 and some of those other values. So before I import, I'm going to go to work breakdowns, and I want to make sure that the ones that I want to use are already created for this project, or I want to create them. So in this example here, down at the bottom, this is where I can add additional breakdowns. So in my case, I want one for unit format 1. I hit the plus. It now shows up for this particular project. I'm going to change to Uniformat 2. Let's say that I also want the 95 CSI level 1. I'm just going to say the main level. And let's say that I also have detail, plan page, phase, all sorts of different things. Let's see, the other one I had in this one was the building. So that gets me all the different WBS codes that I need for this particular project. Now, if I go to my cost categories, same concept. Sub is automatically set up, but if I want the ability to break out other categories, I want to set them up before I import, so I've got some place to tell it this money goes to labor, or this money goes to materials, etc. So I'm going to say labor, and let's say that's going to be a category. I'm going to hit add again. Material, let's say. Sub was already in there, so let's say equipment. And my last one that I've got is other. Now, keep in mind, if I was really going to use all these WBS codes and all these categories every single time, this is where you'll probably want to check out the video about template estimates, where you could actually utilize this estimate as a template. So that way, when you start new estimates, you could have the same, structure, so you don't have to type those in each time. In this particular case, I'm going to turn around now and say I want to import an estimate. I'm going to go to Excel again. I'm going to find my Excel spreadsheet and drag and drop it on the box. Item code, that was in there in the first one. That's still going to be the same, just the item code for my spreadsheet. The item name still going to just be the description. My takeoff quantity matched up. My unit of measure already matched up. What's going to be my equipment money? So in my case, we had equipment amount. We had a labor amount. We had a material amount. We had an other amount. Subcontract amount. So then, I don't remember what the code was. That must have been in there already. So I'm going to skip that for a moment. And I'm going to go down to my 95, and I'm going to say the 95 level 1. I don't have a name for my 95 level 1. It was just that code, so I'm going to leave that there. My alternate is going to just be that alternate column. I didn't really have a name for it, so I'm going to leave it. My bid package is going to be my group phase, or my group in the spreadsheet, and I did have a name column separated for it. My building is kind of the same thing. I just had a building, so there wasn't really a name for it, so that was just a field, so I'm going to leave that blank. But if you notice, these were all the WBS codes that I'd created previously, so that's how I knew, about the building and the detail. So detail is going to be the same way. I'm going to say that's going to be this detail code. No name. Phase is going to be my phase. Description is going to be the phase description. Uniformat level 1. Don't have a description for it. Uniformat level 2. So in this case here, I've got basically everything picked out that, I want to basically bring in at this point. So I'm going to go ahead and hit next. So now notice that everything fell under base bid. I had 3 different bid matrices. Within a bid matrix, we had our phases. Within each phase, we had different items. So that's all exactly the same as, what it was previously. But the main difference is now, as I start taking a look at this information, if I were to tell the system that I wanted to group information or break other information out, now I've got the ability to break some of this information out into more detail. So for example, let's go back to our summary sheet. So at this point in time, we are, where's my sort? Group, there we go. So right now I'm grouping by alternate, bid package, phase. But if I had estimated this by building or different details or plan pages or other things, you could come in there and say that I also want to group by building. And maybe now I'll notice that I've got, each, let's say I want building closer up. So now as I look at it, I can see, okay, I've got the base bid had building A and building B, and then, whatever the different divisions of bid metrics is between there and so forth. Or if I had something like, maybe I did, say I want to see uniformat. So I'm going to say uniformat 1 and 2, and let's drop phase temporarily, and I'm going to get rid of the bid package for right now. So, then I might see for building A, we got a substructure and a shell, and within the substructure, I can see the foundation and what dollars are associated with it and so forth. So this is all where, if you have that WBS information, more information that you can display. There's also more columns that you can display. So as I go through there and say that I want to see my labor and materials and things of that nature, you could go in and actually turn those things on to get more information. So for my estimate, I can say I want to see my labor and subcontract and equipment and material. And now as I go across the side here, you'll kind of see how much labor, subcontract, equipment, material, all that same type of detail that maybe I had in a Excel spreadsheet or an estimating system, things of that nature. So by setting up WBS codes, by setting up categories before, then you can import into it, get that detail over to bid metrics, so that way you can group and sort your information by that additional content. If I go back to the normal sort, I'm going to go back to bid package for a moment, and let's say maybe also by phase. So I'm going to just put someone out there and so forth. So as I'm sitting there putting in prices, this is where I could go through and tell it that I want to do something different with my prices. So right now, this dollar amount is what added up for all the different items, whether that was labor, material, or anything of that nature. But in some cases, if I do want to keep track of, labor versus material separate, if I click on this category and tell it to show me a breakdown, I could say, well, I also want you to separate out labor. And let's also say material. So now as I take a look at this, I can actually see for that phase there's so much labor, so much material, so it can actually give me the breakdowns of how much money is really labor and material. So if I've got something where maybe some people lump labor and material together, some suppliers or subs don't, that way I can get that extra breakdown from my estimate to come over and, show me those category details. So like in this case here, this code is still showing me, just subcontract where it's rolled it up. If I came back to that one and I told it to go ahead and connect them all back together, it's going to go back and just roll it back into one money. So connecting basically just rolls it all up into sub, thinking a sub's going to give me a price and it's all going to be built together. Breakout will let me be able to have the ability to see, that value is a separated value. So if you notice, this just took the $5,000 of labor out because that was $7,000 versus if I go ahead and say breakout material also, then this sub amount will go to zero because I didn't estimate anything under sub, that I had $5,000 worth of labor and a couple thousand worth of materials and so forth. That's an example of how you can import WBS codes and categories into your bid metrics. Thanks for watching.